We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome in to the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo along with Sam Monson. Look at us in our new studio. We just kind of stitched it together today.
Yeah,
but
today.
We're here.
People are in the actual studio, so we're in the new podcast studio, which is going to be our home in the future. Isn't quite ready to be our home yet, but we're making it work.
Yeah, so it's going to be great. I've got the controls. Check this out. I could change the. I could just put myself on camera the entire time.
Uh-huh.
I could put you on camera to show off your shirt, Sam. You were excited about your Hart Foundation shirt, Brett the Hitman Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a plus goatee. I see. Yeah, that's great.
It's a pretty awesome shirt.
But anyway, I can control the cameras. Soon I'll be able to control audio and slides in the background.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much we want you in control of all of this stuff.
Record buttons pressed. That's what I was worried about.
Right, that is the big thing.
I think the mics are on. People can hear us.
You think? Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, we've got a lot to talk about in our midweek show. It's our midweek show. Also, I've decided, I'm a Josh Allen fan. We got a 3-game winning streak here at the Bills, so I might just rock a Josh Allen jersey every now and again.
Okay.
Because why not? We've got a lot to talk about here on our midday show. Midweek show.
Yeah, we can't touch the desk because we'll make sound through the microphone that people don't like because
I like to hit.
I know. I'm reminding
like to hit
you.
the microphone.
We've had to move to these sort of hard stand mic things, which apparently, according to the feedback from our last podcast, relay sound quite well when you touch the desk. And when you're sitting at this desk or the desk in there, you're pretty prone to do that. And by you, I mean everybody.
Did somebody else change that? Can somebody change this remotely?
That would be bad.
Anyway.
I'm just saying, be careful at hitting the desk. You'll upset people.
Look, just bear with us as we transition.
There's going to be
bear with us.
There's going to be some kinks to work through today.
All right, so it's our midweek show. We're going to preview all of the weekend action and tomorrow's Thursday show, of course. But today we've got Stephon Gilmore traded.
Tyler says, "Move the mic closer to your big mush."
Yeah, I got the note.
Oh, you got it? Okay, you've already done that?
I moved closer.
Oh, okay.
I believe
That's
I did.
Fine.
I believe I did. So let me know if I have to go further. Send me another note, Tyler, if you need it even closer than this. Stephon Gilmore's been traded to the Carolina Panthers. We thought he was going to be released. We thought we were going to talk about his release, but just before we started recording, he got traded to the Carolina Panthers. And I think we'll probably do a little Rams-Seahawks preview today.
Yeah.
Previewing. It's one of the better Thursday night matchups of the week, of the year. So let's get into this. We've got Stephon Gilmore supposedly was going to get released. And now the Carolina Panthers trade for him just 1 week after trading for C.J. Henderson.
Right. And if you want to hear a discussion on Jalen Smith being released, head to the PFF NFL Daily. We covered that. We debated this morning, right? There was the news, Stephon Gilmore is getting released, bombshell by the Patriots. Is that an emergency daily? Is it a Wednesday podcast topic? What do we do?
So many places to give our takes.
Let's go Wednesday. Let's go to the Wednesday show, even though we're waiting a couple of hours because somebody might snag him. Somebody might trade for him, knowing that he's now about to get cut. And that's exactly what happened. Rather than let him hit the open market and then compete with everybody else trying to get him. And honestly, the analysis was, hey, look, Stephon Gilmore's kind of risky at this point. 32 years old, coming off the worst season of his career since year 2. A guy that plies his trade playing a lot of man coverage. It's not a gimme that he's, a big upgrade for a team. You're not getting the defensive player of the year. You're getting whatever shell of that he currently resides in. That being said, pretty much every contender in the NFL needs a cornerback. So it was a weird market of I don't know how many people want to give that contract or that amount of money for him, but a lot of teams should be interested. So Carolina throwing a pick New England's way, even if it's a really small one and like essentially nothing.
It's a 2023 sixth rounder.
Yes. So it's very small, but it guarantees them the player. The downside being, A, you gave something up when you didn't necessarily have to, and B, you're taking on the contract that New England didn't want and pretty much nobody else was likely to want.
And that was the key. Not every team could have been in the market. The Panthers were able to take on the contract, and that's very much a reason why the Stephon Gilmore thing happens, right? It's not everybody can take that kind of money because they don't have the cap space for this year. The Panthers did. They've been aggressive in the cornerback market. They lost to J.C. Horn already, their first-round pick. And like I said, traded for C.J. Henderson. He's played one game for them, and they're going with Stephon Gilmore. I think it's good to define what Stephon Gilmore is, too.
He's a cornerback, Steve.
He's a cornerback.
An NFL cornerback.
He's also a guy, when he was in Buffalo, if you've got Premium Stats 2.0 and your PFF Elite package, you go through his grades. He was pretty good in Buffalo. He's good in 2014 and 15, okay in 2016. But he really hit his stride when he got to New England. And a New England system, he got off to a slow start in 2017, a couple coverage busts here and there. But since early 2017, he has been pretty much the best corner in the NFL. Now, that tapered off last year. But they did it not just a man-heavy scheme, but one where they're playing man about 50% of the time. I mean, a ridiculous rate compared to the rest of the NFL. So the question is, Gilmore's, when he played with the Bills, it was more variety in those. I know the New England has variety, but we're talking they played a lot more zone, played a lot more off. Where does he fit in to Carolina Panthers team or other teams that could have been in the market here?
So I think he is actually a good fit now because, we were concerned about how J.C. Horn was going to fit into this defense because they had played a ton of zone last year. They didn't seem like a team that played man coverage and needed that kind of corner. J.C. Horn comes in. They obviously had this defined plan for him. They trade for C.J. Henderson. He gets ripped to pieces by Amari Cooper last week. I think there is a role for Gilmore within this defense. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what he has left because that's the big concern, right? I think it's a gamble worth taking for a lot of teams, depending on the money, and this is quite a lot of money. But I don't think he has a ton left. On the other hand, I didn't think Casey Hayward had a ton left. The problem with corners is when you get a guy above 30 and he has a bad year, it's 2 + 2 = 4. You immediately think they're kind of done, right? Yeah. Cornerback is that position where athleticism is everything, and if you start losing a step, you're game over. Now, I will say, so what I'm saying is there's precedent this year, let alone having to go back far, of like a guy that people probably thought was over the hill and out of it, immediately bouncing back. And Casey Hayward is a first quarter All-Pro in the Raiders defense, and they got him for just picked him up for nothing. So there's precedent saying it's worth the gamble for a team, who thinks they're contending to roll the dice, grab Stephon Gilmore, and if he bounces back to what he can be, that's as transformative as you're going to get in the middle of an NFL season. On the other hand, I do think there's a difference between a guy who specialized generally in zone defense, cover 3 type of systems, versus Stephon Gilmore, whose primary calling card was being able to go man to man against a receiver, whether it was the number 1 or just the receiver they like the matchup of, whatever, but go man to man, play that type of coverage and allow the defense to do everything else around him. I think that's slightly different in terms of expecting or projecting a bounce back.
So the Panthers played as much zone coverage as any team in the NFL last year. They have played more man this year. They're about middle of the pack as far as playing cover 1. Again, that is Stephon Gilmore's specialty. That is where in 17, 18, and 19, PFF coverage grades of 87, 90, 85. And doing it in a man coverage scheme where it's harder to grade that well in our system. It's just harder to be that good playing man coverage in one-on-one. 20 pass breakups in the Patriots 2018 Super Bowl season, allowing 44% of passes to be completed. I mean, he was attacked over 100 times in that 2018 season and just didn't give anything up. He was incredible. So it seems like a worthwhile risk at the bottom line, right? For a sixth round pick in 2023.
It is.
And if you look at where the Panthers are right now, with all the injuries and the fact, hey, they're 3-1 and they're trying to battle. Maybe they're a little better than we expected coming into the season. They're trying to make a move here.
So that's what's kind of interesting. Like, how good does Carolina think they are? Do they think they're a contender this year? And I don't mean that as a I mean, it sounds kind of pejorative, right? Like, hey,
Especially coming from you.
Does that team really think they're a contender this year? But like, seriously, do they think they're a contender this year? They got off to that hot start. They were 3-0. They hadn't really played anybody. When they did play somebody, they fell to 3-1 and didn't look great doing it. Like, do they think that actually this year we can contend and we can make the playoffs and we can make some noise once we get there? Because this is this is a move. Where were you on the cough button there? Yeah, perfect.
I'm not pressing your mic. I'm not pressing the mic button.
We were. I mean, where like
how good is Carolina?
Yes.
What do they think?
Because this is a move for now. Like, this is not a long-term fix for a team. This is a move of, hey, we think we can be good this year. Things have not necessarily gone well at the cornerback position. Gilmore comes in. If it doesn't work out, we're in no worse a position. If it does work out, we're cooking because we just got like a top-level man corner. That's the move Carolina have made. And of all the teams that we were sort of speculating when we thought he was getting cut outright, they were teams for whom I think that made more sense, right? Green Bay is probably a team that's going to contend and wants to take that step. Dallas is a team that probably thinks they're going to contend.
I thought
and wants to take that step.
Seattle's got the 5th worst, lowest graded corners in the entire NFL.
Seattle, I mean, San Francisco. I could name half a dozen teams for whom I think it makes more sense than Carolina.
Of course, the Bucs were in the mix because it's a star player, and anytime there's a star player out there, the Bucs seem to be in the mix. Plus, they've got all the cornerback injuries. Carlton Davis will not be back for a while on the outside as well. And even though they just made the Sherman move, well, the Panthers also just made the C.J. Henderson move. So clearly, the Panthers have recognized a weakness. They're taking a shot on Gilmore. When you play in the NFC South, you have to play the Bucs.
Yep.
They haven't. They're going to play later in the season. So Brady and the Bucs just missed Stephon Gilmore with the Patriots, but they will see him later in the year. So you have to be able to cover. You've got to be able to match up against some of those tough teams in the NFC. So I think the Panthers are saying, look, we are going to make a move. We are pretty good. We're rebuilding, but they're also not tied to Gilmore long term here.
Yeah.
That's the other piece of this. So they figured it's worth a shot.
Plus, I guess, when you're talking about a player and the only downside is like the contract, if you have the room for the contract,
take it this
it's not
year.
a problem,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's only an issue if you're completely prohibited from making the move because you can't get that contract under the cap, or B, it's going to be crippling long term to take on that kind of deal. And Carolina's in neither situation, so for them, it really was effectively like just picking him up off the street once he'd been cut, right? Like, the only difference is you throw away a minimal pick and you're good. What have you just done?
Nothing.
You just break something?
This is like the Seinfeld view when George is talking to George Steinbrenner, and I'm Steinbrenner. We might do the whole podcast like this, just the back of my head talking to you, and I'll be Steinbrenner. He's never got to see his face. You see the back of his head.
Okay.
So I'm Steinbrenner guy. I know you don't like Seinfeld, but
yeah,
that's your problem. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, has a Week 5 offer every football fan should jump on. Should I do this on the solo cam?
Why not?
Yeah. New customers can bet just $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's right. The last 0-0 tie in the NFL was in 1943. So I'd say that's a no-brainer. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. And DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, Sam, and use promo code PFF. Throw down $1 on any NFL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a point. That's it. Either team just has to score a point. That's promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older in New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-GAMBLER must work in Indiana now. They don't have their own.
They don't have their own 1-800-GET
number,
with it or whatever it was.
Which is great.
It's a lot easier to screw up shots with this system. You can play around,
Yeah. Let's go back to Costanza Steinbrenner shot here.
We need to tell people about the charity drive 4.0.
Yeah, and so sometimes I wear my I've decided to turn my Josh Allen jersey and maybe just like a regular part of the rotation here.
Okay.
But this is like a reminder of the last charity drive. I had to wear the Josh Allen jersey.
Yeah.
I had to sign the apology form.
You did?
Since signing the apology form, what are they? They're 3-0.
They're winning.
They're winning. We're coming off a 40-0.
Josh Allen
victory.
is 3-0 QB wins since you signed the form.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So I'm a Josh Allen fan. I'm just here. It's Victory Wednesday here as Bills fans. So That was 3 charity drives in the books, and now the 4th one is up and going.
So look, we have to thank the listeners and the watchers. We do. Three charity drives in. We've raised over $8,000, I think, so far between the 3 of them. I had a goal. We write down these internal goals as part of our sort of continuous development, whatever, all the kind of businessy, technical HR crap that we have to do these days as a growing company, as opposed to when it was just.
We appreciate you, Tanya.
Absolutely. When it was just half a dozen of us getting by on whatever. We've got to do all these things. One of the goals I put down was I would like to be able to raise $10,000 in a calendar year for charity using this stuff, right? So we're doing good things based off the following that you have. We've raised $8,000 so far. The new target is up. It's $2,000. That would push us over the $10,000 goal that I had for the calendar year after just a few months, right? So 3 drives down. The first one was the Fro Show. If you go to my Twitter and scroll down a little bit, you'll see the sort of visual representations of the shows we've done so far. First one was the Fro Show. Steve turns up, has to wear a giant afro for the entire, wear it like it's his own hair. Rock the giant afro for the entire show. Amazing, frankly.
Great.
2 was Minor League Sam. I had to dress up in all your old baseball crap, had a ridiculous facial hair. That was pretty funny. 3 was the Josh Allen apology jersey. Number 4, what we have decided upon was so simple. It was staring us in the face the whole time.
I know. How did we not even think of that?
Took a dude to throw it out on Twitter. We had talked about the potential of me trying to defend a dunk from you and getting posterized.
That could be down the road, maybe.
Maybe. Somebody else suggested, why not Sam just has to face down Steve as a pitcher in the batting cage? Like just have you fire 10 pitches or whatever at me with a baseball bat and see if I can connect and or survive the encounter. So that's what we're going to do. The details we're going to work out, how many pitches, how it's all going to function. I think I like the idea of like us adding to the prize pool based off success or failure of pitching and or hitting. But that's essentially the idea, right? I'm going to face down minor league pitching Steve, who's going to be firing baseballs at me like a human howitzer. I was thinking about this.
Don't overrate my 39-year-old arm here.
I'm just, you may have lost something in the intervening years between minor league, on the fringes of the majors and now, right? I think that's fair to say.
Yes.
The way you get like an old car and it started off with like 400 horsepower. And by the time it's 30 years old, it's got like 220. They leave. Yeah. The horses bolt the barn.
Right.
So I suspect you've lost some horsepower in the old arm.
I have.
On the other hand, I was thinking about this. I think I've swung a baseball bat 10 times in my life, and they all happened within a 10-minute period several years ago at a stag weekend thing.
It's like a bachelor party.
Yeah, bachelor party.
Yeah.
So there was a place in Ireland where it's like a warehouse, right? And it was sort of divided up into like eighths, and each eighth was like a different sport. So you would work your way down, get points, everybody, and then the one with the most points wins. So there was like, a goal set up where you would drop kick rugby balls, right? And you'd have 5 goes or whatever. That's your rugby one. There was hurling. You have to fucking scoop the thing up and belt it through the way hurling people do that I've never been able to do in my life. There was baseball, where they had like a pitching machine. You just stood there and there was 10 pitches fired your way and you had to see how many you could hit. So I believe that's the only 10 times in my life I've swung a baseball bat.
Yeah, this could get ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, as long as I have a helmet and probably some kind of elbow protection.
We were looking up my minor league stats. I hit 37 batters.
Right. And my question to you is, how many were deliberate?
0.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, you got to pitch inside. You got to go in, out.
And that,
inside, outside.
Having seen you throw a football doesn't shock me in the slightest.
What do you mean?
You may still have quite an amount of power in your arm, but it is quite scattergun in terms of accuracy.
As long as I use my legs, stay within my mechanics, I probably won't hit you. I'm thinking we should try to do it on a field. I'd like to have a catcher.
And video, this will all be videoed. It'll be on the podcast. We might even create like a standalone video for YouTube, like Renner's 40-time thing.
Yeah.
Everything will be done.
I also don't want to have Tommy John or shoulder surgery, so I'd like to kind of build up the arm a little bit. Or do you want me to just kind of like roll out of bed and do this? I'm also thinking of your safety. If I have a little bit of time to get my mechanics down and not.
You have that kind of. It's quite ironic, actually, for a man that's won the Bull in the China Shop award at the PFF internal thing for 2 or 3 years running. But you have quite a oh dear, must be careful of the little people thing. Like you're like,
I don't want to hurt people.
Gulliver and the Lilliputians, you're just, I can't step on them.
That's
like,
me playing basketball. I throw
well,
elbows a lot in basketball.
All like scenario, you're very conscious of the like horrendous damage you could do to the regular size humans if a stray limb flies into their,
little soft,
into
little
their
soft on
vicinity.
the basketball court and everything.
So when we were playing like one-on-one in the basketball, like you were horrendously concerned about clacking me in the head with an elbow. And here it's like, oh, I might hit him, might hurt him.
I'm just saying,
if I have
hit some people.
I don't doubt that.
Mostly righties.
I don't doubt that for a second. My point is simply, if you give me a helmet and probably something to avoid my elbow splintering into pieces, at that point I think I'm okay. Right. Like I'm not saying
I have a catcher. I need a catcher. I need a nice catcher target to throw to.
I'm not saying you won't hit me, and I'm not saying that won't hurt. But at that point, I'm relatively confident that no serious damage will be done.
Well, I'm ready for this. I'm ready. I'm excited. I think it's a great idea. We're doing it for the animals. Where's it going?
That's a good question. Where are we going? This is for
it's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see this.
It's for a group called Best Friends Animal Society. So, COVID world, everyone was locked down for like a year, so everyone got a puppy, including us. Right? This was like
puppy.
1 million new dogs that everybody got, and then when everybody went back to work, like half of them got dumped back in shelters. Like people suck. I mean, okay, there's some people for whom your circumstances change, and you really, there is an inevitability through a small section of people that they have to give a dog back. There's a lot of other people though that are just kind of assholes and never budgeted what it actually meant, and they just don't have the commitment to keep hold of the dog. So anyway, a ton of these things get brought back to shelters, and a lot of animal shelters, they just kill the thing, right? So you bring this dog back. It's like, oh, I'm giving it a better life. I can't look after it. But really what happens is this thing like deals with the dog for a week and then they get killed. So there's like this ton of animals right now getting put down because people just aren't looking after them since they go back to work. The Best Friends Animal Society is trying to essentially create a world where no pet is ever destroyed simply because they're stuck in a shelter and people couldn't look after them. So I think that's a really good place to send money. That's who we're raising money for. And in addition to that, if you don't care about the animals, or
just for the comedy, just
for
the fun,
if you're just in it for the giggles, that'll be fun too. Because there's a pretty good chance that I get beamed with a baseball from a dude that used to pitch in the minor leagues, and there's a smaller chance that I accidentally connect with one of these things, and a former minor league pitcher gets beamed out of the
embarrassed.
Right, gets blasted out of the park by some guy that's never swung a bat before.
I sent you a picture of the worst slider in baseball history on Twitter. I mean, if I give you that hanging slider,
I think I could hit that.
You might hit it. It just kind of spun.
So what I discovered is that as I say, 10 times in my life maybe I've swung a baseball bat. It is not dissimilar to a golf swing though. Like it's actually a very similar swing, just on a different plane. Like
it is.
And I don't have a bad golf swing. Now, I don't play golf.
I don't think you realize how tough it is to hit a baseball.
I'm just saying,
it's
look,
just really
when this thing in a warehouse fired 10 balls at me, I think I hit a reasonable number of them.
It's really difficult. Anyway, let's get into so
you didn't make it look that hard.
Check out. I have a hit in minors.
No, I don't mean you hitting. I mean the people hitting you.
Oh no, that's true. That's true. I can hit the barrel of the bat pretty well as a pitcher. So maybe I'll make you look good. Anyway, so check out, it's your pinned tweet.
So it's my pinned tweet right now. You'll pin it. We will put it in the descriptions of the podcast as well. I know that's more of a pain in the ass if you're listening than if you're watching on YouTube, but the description will be there to find, and you can go to the GoFundMe, donate money.
All right, let's get into some of the other NFL stuff. Justin Fields, officially named the number one quarterback after Monday's press conference in which Andy Dalton was named the starter as long as he's healthy.
Yes. By the same human, 48 hours ago.
By Matt Nagy.
Big Cat, Barstool Big Cat had a tweet that I think summed this up, right? So SportsCenter, the Bears announced that Justin Fields is their starting quarterback going forward. Big Cat's reaction. Wait, what? Why is this announced right now? I mean, this is awesome, but how does Matt Nagy make even the easy things confusing and weird? Which kind of does sum it up. Like, literally 48 hours ago, on the heels of Justin Fields looking really good against Detroit and giving the city of Chicago hope for the first time in a long time, and, all the good feeling that was built up there, Nagy wanders into his press conference, just pours a bucket of ice water all over the top of that and goes, nope, as soon as Andy Dalton's healthy, he's still the starter. And even if that was true, everyone was like, why would you say that out loud Like, what? Why? And then 48 hours later, it reverses it, and it's Justin Fields, the starting quarterback. And a quote from cousin Doug Kite.
Yeah. Doug.
Matt Nagy on naming Justin Fields starting quarterback. He's done everything to show us he's ready for this opportunity. What has he done in the last 48 hours to make you change? What?
Maybe he looked good in the meeting room.
Yeah?
He
really nailed those Monday meetings.
He recited the game plan back.
It's not even Monday's probably a day off. Like,
yeah, I know.
He's had one meeting
I'm
day.
making stuff up. Matt Nagy was told, hey, listen, can we give the fans some hope, please? Can you please stop pushing Andy Dalton? I was behind.
Seriously, this kind of has to be a decision from not him, right?
I was behind the Dalton stuff at the beginning of the season. Because, I've never changed my tune that roll with Dalton as long as you want. I don't care. Go as long as you want. But at some point, you pass it over to Fields when you feel like he's ready, and it's like it just feels like it's time, right? It's time.
Is it though? Because the Raiders are playing. You're playing the Raiders next, and then you're playing a bunch of other teams that can rush the passer. Kind of like look. So what the difference between Justin Fields the first time and Justin Fields his second game, I think, was far more the difference between the Cleveland Browns defensive line and the Detroit Lions defensive line than it was.
What about the
difference between Nagy and a new play caller?
What about the easy narrative? That's the easy narrative. Everybody and man,
but that's the one nobody's using. Everyone else is using the play calling narrative.
Yes, there's no nuance here. Matt Nagy called plays against the Browns, and it's all his fault. It's all his fault, right? So then Bill Lazor's calling plays against the Lions, and it's all Justin Fields finally being put in position to succeed. So if he has a bad game against the Raiders and Matt Nagy's not calling plays, then whose fault is it? Why is everybody trying to absolve Justin Fields of anything here?
There's a couple of strands to this. The first one is does Justin Fields give you a better chance to win the game if you're the Chicago Bears? Because that's what people always say, right? Who gives you the best chance to win? That, I don't think, is the same answer for every opposition. I think Justin Fields gives you a far better chance to win a game versus the Lions than Andy Dalton does. I think he gives you less chance of beating a team like the Browns than Andy Dalton did, because as much as that was a no-hope game, like the way their defensive line dominated.
Playing this?
Yeah, their defense dominated, so I don't think any game plan had any shot, right? I think the Bears were dead in the water in that game. But I think they were less dead in the water if Andy Dalton was the starting quarterback than if Justin Fields was. I don't think Justin Fields at this point is capable of executing the game plan that you need to survive that kind of complete overwhelming onslaught. Now, the problem is that overwhelming onslaught has a pretty good chance of materializing against the Raiders. It's got a pretty good chance of materializing against the Bucs, the Steelers, the Ravens, all of whom are upcoming in the next few weeks. So
yeah, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot here.
And then the second question is, so regardless of which one gives you the best chance to win, does putting Justin Fields out against one of those teams who are potentially going to completely swamp your offensive line, does that damage him? Is that a problem long term? Steve Young on Monday Night Football was talking about, from personal experience, and to be fair, he has quite a lot of personal experience in this area, of you start off, you're getting destroyed, you're getting wrecked, the opposition's way better than you are, and then eventually you're drowning, right? Eventually you get your head above water. And then once your head's above water, you can breathe, and you start to get a little bit better and a little bit better, and then all of a sudden you're a Hall of Fame quarterback and everything's good, right? Now,
the usual flow.
Right, exactly. So A, that's a very specific and unique situation to Steve Young. And B, he didn't really get his head above water until he got the hell out of Tampa Bay. It's not like, Steve was on the way in Tampa and, just another 6 months and we would be talking about the same Hall of Fame quarterback. This was the dude that had kind of flamed out at that point, and the 49ers bring him over, and all of a sudden the situation's a lot better and it's easier for Steve.
To me, that is the biggest mistake analysts make, is compared to their career.
Right. But
it's what they're hired to do.
Yes.
But when you project that on players, it's like Kurt Warner coming out and be like, look, everybody just needs, you got to go to the Arena League for a few years. You got to bag groceries for a few years to find yourself, and then you'll become a Hall of Famer.
All you need is a summer tossing chickens in the Kmart. Right. And that's what really makes you appreciate life in the NFL.
And I'm not saying Kurt Warner does. I think Kurt Warner has excellent analysis, and I think Young has his moments as well. I just think it's a big mistake when you only compare to your specific career.
But I also think like he's essentially saying, if I hadn't been traded from Tampa Bay, I was still on the way, right? I think there's a pretty good chance if Steve Young never made it out of Tampa Bay,
I mean, if you want
nobody would know who Steve Young is anymore.
Look, again, there's no nuance ever in the world anywhere. And people who like a quarterback think he's great. People who don't like him say, oh, system quarterback.
Sure.
But if there is a world where a system continually elevated quarterbacks, it's the West Coast system of the 80s and 90s. Yeah. It is Bill Walsh and that entire tree taking Joe Montana and Steve Young and Brett Favre and making them some of the most efficient passers in the NFL. So yes, that situation certainly was a big part of Steve Young's development.
Not even, like, my point is almost the other side of it. It's not that he ended up going to a great system and when he did that, everything was good. It's if you had kept him in the system where he was getting destroyed because everything in Tampa was bad. The personnel, the coaching, the scheme, the whole thing was a disaster and he was getting wrecked. Like, if you had kept him there, you're telling me he still would have succeeded just through the durability, like through the experience of playing through that. Because he's essentially making the point of you throw him into the fire, and then if he's good, he will eventually overcome those flames and become great. Because I did, right? I mean, is that really how it went down for you, Steve? I'm not 100% convinced that's how it happened. And I would say there's a pretty good chance that if you were left in the fire rather than rescued from it and transported to San Francisco, you would have eventually burned up to a crisp the way everything else does.
Yeah, I think that I don't disagree. Now, as we look at Fields and what we expect from him, he's probably going to have to drop back more than 20 times, like he has both of the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. There's going to be more on his plate. The narrative will shift again, but I think we'll see a hybrid of what we saw last week and the week before, right? There'll be some bad. He'll still probably take some sacks and show off the arm talent. 4 big-time throws on 20 dropbacks where it was just spectacular. As far as what he's able to do, see a window, hit it, throw it with accuracy, throw it with touch, and the whole thing. So we'll have more on Fields and previewing this weekend's game, of course, on the Thursday show tomorrow. The one game we do want to preview, though, is Rams Seahawks. Do you have anything else on Fields?
Well, just to put it, like, just to wrap it up, right? I do think that that's a discussion. The only discussion that has any merit at this point is, does putting Justin Fields out there in games where he is getting destroyed benefit him, or does it hurt him?
Look, because your this take that you've been on since the beginning of the season that, like, Teddy Bridgewater is going to play the easy games and Drew Lock's going to play the bad games. It just feels situation. But you're kind of leaning toward this whole, like, I don't want to.
It's like it's the exact opposite. In fact,
you want to protect Justin Fields against good pass rushes. Basically.
Yeah, because we just saw what happens when you don't. The Browns game happens. Like, you're telling me if he has 7 more games like the Browns game, you telling me that doesn't damage his future?
To me, you're either all in or you're all out. You either think he's learning he's going to learn.
That's what I'm saying. But there's
or he's not.
He's not learning from the Browns game. What did you learn from that?
It's probably more damaging if you start looking at the schedule and be like, oh, the Raiders have, Max Crosby's playing really well. I'm going to go Dalton.
But what you can't not factor in what would happen if he has to play 5 more Browns games.
Oh, the Bucks are coming up. Sorry, Justin. Vita Vea he's 350 pounds.
Even if
it's no, the Steelers are coming up. They like to blitz a lot. They have TJ Watt. Sorry, you're not coming up. You're just afraid of every NFL team?
Not every NFL team. Look, this
Lions coming up on the schedule. Thanksgiving. Justin, you come back Thanksgiving.
How can you mock this as a concept after seeing it in action? Like, it's one thing in the abstract to be like, oh, you can't be afraid of NFL defenses. And then you saw the Browns game. And you're still being like, oh, you can't be. Why not? He got murdered in that game, and the Bears offense got 1 passing yard. Like, this is a thing that has to be considered from this point on, because the Browns don't have the best defense in the NFL. There are better defenses than the Browns. And he plays a couple of them, right?
I get it.
So you have to factor that in. Even if it's not taking him back and starting somebody else in that game, but, like, it might be a Tua situation where you're saying, we might need to be prepared to take him out of the game if we run up against one of these teams and we have 1 yard by halftime.
I think all of your question before the season was like, is it more damaging to take him out at some point?
Yes.
I think it probably is.
You think it's more damaging to rescue him from the Browns game than to keep with him?
I think when it's time to go, it's time to go. Whenever they decide it's time for him to be the guy, it's time for him to be the guy, and you take your lumps and you go.
I think there is a huge chance that playing multiple games like that Cleveland game is maybe not irreparably damaging, but sets a player back significantly. And if you can protect him from that,
so what would your strategy be? You're just not going to play him?
Well, I don't think you can do what – if it was me making the calls, for a start, I wouldn't have come out on Monday and said, well, Dalton's the quarterback, and then I wouldn't have reversed it 48 hours later.
It's a good start.
Thanks. I mean, I would have kept freaking quiet until later in this week and then seen how Andy Dalton was. I don't think the Raiders is the worst team in the world to put him out there against. I think their pass rush is a little bit overblown, and it's not as good as it looks. On the other hand, it's been beating up on bad offensive lines, so it might still beat up on the Bears. I think you put him out there against the Raiders and you see what it looks like. But if they haven't got a plan in place for what happens if this thing is like the Browns game, they're out of their minds.
Plan being the hook.
Yes, the hook and like okay, this is like we might have to sit you for a while.
You guys can change the camera. You guys can change it from the send me a message.
People are coming in overriding you.
Bark once if it is tough to keep up with the camera
It's
stuff.
like hit on the pipes. Like we could have Morse code.
They could use the Slack chat.
That's true. We have developed past Morse code on the pipes, particularly as neither of
unless
us.
I accidentally pressed it, but I think somebody's overriding me.
I don't know about you, but I don't speak Morse code.
I don't.
I know SOS if that helps.
You know this Morse code on the Green Monster, Fenway Park?
I didn't know.
Gene and Gene Yaki and whatever it is, Tom Yaki says their name. Morse code. Go Red Sox! They won last night.
Okay.
Yankees game. Did you like that?
No, I don't know who those people are.
Didn't you enjoy that? Didn't you enjoy that?
I didn't know.
All right. Before we get into, we'll wrap it. We will put a bow on the bow.
Bow on the bow
On Justin Fields. But first, reminder: it's a football podcast. It's football season, baby. You know what that means?
What does it mean?
It means we're going for two here with the sponsors of today's show. Manscaped, they're back. Blitzing through hairs has never been easier. And it's time for you to join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using promo code PFF at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping. It's 3 and out the window with all the other trimmers. Are there even other trimmers in this space? It's all Manscaped anyway. Go tame that wildcat offense, Sam. Look, everybody needs this. It's over 2 million men. It's the best trimmer on the market. We've been here since the 1.0. We're here to the 4.0. It's better than ever. It's brand new. That's this lawnmower 4.0. It's here to take your defense to the next level. This fourth generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. Nobody likes those.
Nobody.
Thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. All these things are they've got little trademark symbols next to them. That's how you know Manscaped is legit. They have literally trademarked the industry when it comes to men's grooming. Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on-off switch that can engage a travel lock, and it gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Did I mention this trimmer is waterproof as well? That's right. Rain, snow, or sleet. Doesn't matter where you are. It's no match for the waterproof power of the 4.0. And as the fans pointed out to me, they liked this line. There's no 15-yard penalty for this clipping. That's right. No 15-yard penalty. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the promo code PFF. Stiff arm your pubes out of the playoffs this year with Manscaped.
I'm sorry, but that's the best line. The clipping thing is nice.
I take some poetic license at times with these. Other times you stick to
what you read what's on the card.
Yeah, stiff arm them right out of the way.
Look,
Manscaped.com, promo code is PFF.
The clipping thing is good, but that was outstanding.
Anything else on this Fields thing? I don't know what your solution is. So
I don't have.
Coming up, it's Raiders. Just see what happens against the Raiders. Be ready to pull.
See what happens against the Raiders. If he keeps his head above water, let's roll with this and let's
Raiders,
see if he.
Packers, Bucks, 49ers, Steelers, Ravens. You could go through any of those teams. Like the Packers have like the least scary defense out of that group.
This is what this is the point I made a week ago. Like if he was bad against the Lions, he wasn't going to play again until the next Lions game in like late November minimum because every one of these defenses can scare you.
I think that's when
but he played well against the Lions. So the question is, well, what do you do with that? Because we've now seen him drown against the Browns, who just dominated. We've then seen him be pretty successful against the Lions defense, who have no corners and can't rush the passer as well. And he dropped some dimes in there. So what do you do with that information when you know that the teams upcoming are as much better than the Lions, right? You can't do anything with it. Now you have to put him out there and see how he gets on against a team like the Raiders. And if you get to halftime in that game and he has, 3 passing yards, he's been sacked more times than he's, completed passes, the entire offense is grounded in the dirt and they're like 20 points down, don't send him out for halftime. That's not helping anybody. On the other hand, if he's looking okay, if he's keeping his head above water, all right, let's see what we can do here. He's better than Andy Dalton in terms of what he can bring, big plays and all those kinds of things. So let's push through this and let's get going. But you can't
And you think this is the best strategy for his long-term development?
Yes, because I don't think that, like, if he sucks against the Raiders and if it looks like another Browns game, you are saying there's a pretty good chance that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight, or 7 out of 8 games are going to be him getting annihilated. I cannot think that doesn't damage a quarterback of any caliber. Steve Young, Kurt Warner, Justin Fields, whoever. You put them in that situation, that's damaging.
What do you do next year? And you look at this week 1, they have the Rams again, and you're going to play. Like, when is he ready? Just week or 2 you throw him in?
I don't know, but like, yeah, at some point you have to actually play him.
Yeah, at some point.
Right, but like in theory, in the offseason, you're going to have a chance to overhaul an offensive line that sucks.
I would hope so.
Like, so you can actually like attack the problem from other places than Justin Fields, in addition to, maybe some people on the coaching staff and or upper management aren't there next year.
That is possible. All right, let's wrap this show up with the first preview of this weekend. It's Rams and Seahawks. It's a Thursday night battle. Usually on Thursday nights, you get what was it last week? 2 weeks ago, you get Texans, Panthers. People don't get that excited.
Davis Mills, Texans,
the Davis Mills game. This is a Thursday game to get behind. Rams, Seahawks, the 2-0 Seahawks, the 3-1 Rams. Rams coming off their first loss of the season against the Arizona Cardinals. We've talked all offseason about how good the NFC West is, so we got a primetime game between these two teams. Rams owned the Seahawks last season. This was Russell Wilson cooking and ready to break the touchdown record last year. He was finally going to get an MVP vote, and then he ran into the Rams 3 times in the second half of the season, including the playoffs. So the Rams had the Seahawks number last year. The Seahawks hired Shane Waldron from the Rams to run the Seahawks offense, which has been interesting. I mean, it's been a little up and down. If you just use EPA per play, they're middle of the pack as far as offense goes. Russell Wilson has been good, but they've created some big plays. So it's been a top-heavy Seahawks offense so far. Their defense has some issues, whereas the Rams, a week ago, we were talking about them as the best team in the NFL, and then they kind of lay an egg against the Arizona Cardinals. So what are you looking for here in this Rams-Seahawks battle?
Well, the first thing is, so Aaron Donald is coming off the worst game of his entire career by PFF grades. He had a grade of 51. Somebody tweeted this at us. I don't remember who it is. I apologize. Somebody else internally came up with it independently as well. That was the worst game, the most non-factor Aaron Donald has ever been in a game, judging by PFF grades, for his entire career, which is madness, actually. But Aaron Donald has traditionally owned the Seahawks offensive line.
Yes.
Like, absolutely destroyed it because they've never had any kind of quality guard play. Is this a massive bounce-back game from Donald?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a big part of this whole thing, right? Donald, that Rams defense is contingent on 2 players playing well. If Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey don't play well, the Rams defense has some issues because they don't really have talent elsewhere. And last week, that was one of the things that happened. Donald was a non-factor in the game.
That was just his pass rush grade. I mean, he did grade well in the run game last week.
Right.
For whatever
but the
worth.
51.5 pass rushing grade, 2 total pressures, that's essentially the worst
39
performance
rushes.
he's had
Yep.
in the NFL. If he's not a bigger factor than that, they have some issues. If he is a bigger factor than that, and usually he is a much bigger factor than that against Seattle, that puts the defense back on an even keel again. Then the next thing is, can the Seahawks defense do the kind of job on the Rams passing attack that the Cardinals were able to do, which was shut down those explosive big plays deep down the field. The Cardinals have been the best team in the NFL at doing that. The Seahawks have not.
Right.
So if that's another area where there's a pretty good chance the Rams bounce back in that regard. And if they do, all of a sudden Seattle is in trouble. Seattle's defense in terms of explosive pass plays allowed is 24th. The Cardinals are number 1.
Speaking of explosive plays, that was the number I wanted to pull up, but through the lens of the Rams defense. We've been on here just talking about them in glowing terms for the last year. They play 2 high safeties. They rotate their safeties. They disguise coverage. They invite the run and don't give up big plays. All of that's been true. And here's the number that stands out unbelievably. If you take all of 2020 and the first 2 weeks of 2021, the Rams gave up 78 pass plays of 15 plus yards. So explosive 15 plus yard pass plays. Almost 4 per game, second best in the NFL as far as just total during that time. That's a 20-game total. That includes the playoffs last year and the whole thing. Over the last 2 weeks, though, they've given up 17 plays like that. That's 8.5 per game. So from 4 per game, more than double of those explosive plays against the Bucs 2 weeks ago, and then against the Cardinals this week. So the question from me is this the normal defensive regression that we always talk about? And it's not like the Rams. I just mentioned they played the Seahawks 3 times last year. The Seahawks, DK Metcalf Seahawks, right? They had opportunities to give up big plays against good offenses, and they shut it down. They played the Packers in the playoffs, right? The Rams did play good teams along the way here, but the Bucs created some explosive plays a little bit late in the game too, but the Cardinals owned them last week. So will the Rams defense overall bounce back and do what they do best, which is Donald, who you mentioned, but also just the ability to not give up those big plays that Seattle is. That's what butters their bread, Sam.
This is also one of those games where, when you get an elite receiver and an elite cornerback, everyone wants to see them go up against each other. And then you get to these games, and a lot of the times they just don't because, the corners don't track receivers or whatever it is. So Jalen Ramsey versus DK Metcalf one-on-one is like a dream matchup just to watch, right?
Yep.
But Jalen Ramsey is not tracking receivers this year. They're using him in that slot role where he's playing there, I think, like 55% of his snaps.
But Raheem Morris said he might. And
I
don't know why he would even come out and say that.
I'm pretty sure people have speculated last week with DeAndre Hopkins as well. It was going to happen. And it's something, it's like the quarterback thing, right? Like, why would I tell you we're not doing it on a Tuesday before a game? Like, figure it out yourself. I'm going to leave it open.
Yeah.
So, maybe. But if we do see DK versus Jalen, that's an amazing matchup. And if we don't, we'll be sad.
We will be sad. Last year, DK did get behind him at least once. There may have been a 2 where Russ overthrew him. So as much as we talk about the Rams not allowing those big plays, there were some opportunities that the Seahawks left on the table there. Then the other question is the Seahawks defensive backfield. You talked about explosive plays from their angle where they have not been good. They put Sidney Jones out there last week. He was the one who had the busted coverage on the Deebo Samuel 76-yard wide open touchdown. Sidney Jones with a 30.3 coverage grade. The Seahawks have the 5th worst graded cornerbacks in the NFL so far this year. And you have a Rams offense that, look, Stafford's playing solid football. He's coming off his worst game, but he's playing well. The offense overall has been good. Cooper Kupp's been pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a shootout, right?
It does feel like it should be. I do anticipate the Rams offense getting back on track because I don't think Seattle is capable of doing the things to them that the Cardinals were last week. And the Cardinals had their way with the Rams defense. So the only thing that would prevent it, I think, being a shootout is that I think Donald and Jalen Ramsey should be better this week than they were a week ago. And I don't know if Seattle has enough to overcome that and keep it cooking.
It's in Seattle. Rams are favored by 2.5.
Yep.
In Seattle. I mean, that's and the over-under is 54. So, I mean, even Vegas is expecting a lot of points between these two teams. That might be the highest total of the entire week here. I believe it is. Yes. 50. There's a couple 52.5, 53.5s. 54.5 is the highest total of this entire week. So between the Rams offense, the Seahawks offense, but also the Seahawks defense, again, being a part of this, I think the Rams offense looks great in this game. And I think the Rams hype continues because it's an island game. It's prime time. I think Russ is just going to have to be special if they're going to pull this one off.
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like one of those games where, if the Seahawks are going to hang with the Rams, they're going to need Russ to have an amazing game, which he's entirely capable of doing. But that's what it comes down to for them to be in a shootout.
So where do you want to go as far as we'll do our picks? We'll do everything for this game today. We'll preview all the games tomorrow. Where are you going to go with your pick here? Rams by 2.5 as of this Wednesday afternoon recording.
Picking the Rams, picking them to win and cover on the road.
I think I want to as well. I want to do the same thing. Seattle, again, they're 2-2. It completely changes the division if Seattle wins. Both teams are 3-2. Seahawks finally overcome the Rams, who owned them last season. Cardinals are still 4-0 in that division. 49ers are lurking, and I think, the more we see Trey Lance, the more they're just the 49ers end up becoming this massive wild card in that division, don't they? Where you just don't know if Trey Lance has taken them to the next level or if his rookie, bumps and bruises end up slowing down the 49ers. But it remains, I think, the best division in football. So should be an awesome matchup for Thursday night. I'm gonna go Rams bouncing back here. I think that's it.
Okay.
Anything else you want to touch on here today?
I'm kind of curious why this room is pouring sawdust out over us.
Is it?
Doesn't feel like a great
It's
development.
dropping sawdust?
Yeah. Can
Is
you
there
not see the
sawdust in my
haze
hair?
in the air? Like, this is looking
Let
like
me just say,
it's looking
there's-
like a Cheech and Chong podcast at this point.
there's a lot of pressure on me doing the camera thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure.
Well,
It's tough to think about everything and move the cameras around.
I mean, if you need,
I do like the ability that I own your mic here. I can cut your mic at any time.
you can cut this. You've cut it now.
What?
Am I speaking?
No, you're on.
Oh,
You're
I'm on.
I can cut your mic
thought
at
you
any
were.
time.
I thought you were giving a.
I can also go the monologue show that I always dream of. I
Yeah.
can just take you out of it at any point. It's just me and you, fans, viewers, listeners. It's just me and you.
Okay.
I can do that at any point. So I got a lot of power here, which is great. But it's a lot of pressure as well. Some of the stuff that we could do, we get this beautiful screen here. We could bring in guests on this screen.
We can.
We can have graphics and
Yes.
game previews and various things.
When
like
we
that.
get up and running properly, I think what we're going to have here is like helmet versus helmet for the games we're talking about each week. And then the people that get on the comments and are like, where are my timestamps? They get a lot really angry about it, particularly on the YouTube, right? Okay, we'll still have the timestamps. You know, they might come a little bit after the show goes up, but they'll be there. In the meantime, you will be able to visually see what game we're talking about by the helmets on the TV.
Yeah, and listen, the people that want timestamps, we agree. We can't always get them right
Yeah.
when the show.
By the way, they will always be there.
They will be there, yes.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of time between putting the show up and the timestamps.
We appreciate the timestampers. We understand you want to go listen to your team or whatever it is. So we will always accommodate you.
Yeah.
Make sure that happens. So let us know. What do you think of the new studio and ideas and different things we could do here? Appreciate everybody once again for what you've done in these charity drives previously. We've got the next charity drive over in Sam's pinned tweet, and I'll be tweeting it out as well.
Yeah, the other thing I meant to ask, somebody needs to give us something to Photoshop to put in that thing. At the moment, it's just like a holding picture of you on the mound about to deliver that worst pitch you've ever seen.
So, yeah.
So we need somebody to give us something Photoshopped, right? Some kind of Photoshop representation of you firing a ball at me, waiting, with standing there with the bat ready to knock it out of the park, Steve.
Yeah.
Ready to hit that home run.
I love that you tweeted out you're going to step up to the batter's plate, you said? Yeah.
And people were like, what? As if it's not like a running thing that I have never, I don't know anything about baseball.
I mean, that's
Nothing.
the point of this whole
right.
thing.
That's literally why it's going to be funny, because I'm standing there relying on my golf swing to be able to hit a home run off a guy who was like right on the cusp of being in the majors. Like, that's how ridiculous this is. That's the whole point. That's why it's funny.
Yes.
This is like, when a reporter goes and like gets tackled by an NFL player. Same kind of idea, right?
Funny because you're a reporter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Funny because he has no business be doing what he's doing. This is what we're dealing with here.
Why do you have to call Jack Collinsworth out again?
I didn't mention Jack Collinsworth. You did.
When he got stiff-armed by Derrick Henry?
Yeah, we didn't get tackled by him. We got stiff-armed.
Stiff-armed.
I was thinking about something else entirely.
Oh, okay.
You got to throw him under the bus.
I love Jack. He's awesome. He does a great job for NBC. Appreciate Jack. Okay?
Yeah.
That's how you do it. That's how you...
Well, you can't. I mean, you've already done. The damage has been done. You threw him under the bus right there.
I did not. I'm just saying that was a good bit. It was a good segment for ESPN back in the day when taking a Derrick Henry stiff arm. See what it feels like. Jack knows.
Yeah.
We should have Jack on the show. Talk about that. Anyway, appreciate everybody for tuning in. That does it for our Wednesday show. We'll be back here again on Thursday previewing all of the Week 5 NFL action.
There, that camera. Camera 2.
Camera 2.
Which is number 3.
I can wave. Now you wave. There you go.